gamer.
Welcome everyone to the latest installment of the SGO Developer Spotlight. Mike Straub, Managing Editor, Sports Gamers Online here. And today's guest is someone you guys have been asking for quite some time. And I'm talking about the founder of Canuck Play, the lead developer of Doug Flutie's Maximum Football 20, David Winter. David, first off, thank you for taking the time and joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on. Always enjoy talking about the game, and so happy to be here.
First off, I know the game and the team is very busy getting the game ready for September's launch, but what have the last few months been like for obvious reasons with everything going on as far as in the world with the health crisis and the pandemic? What has been the last few months for you and your team like for developing and getting this game ready?
Well, you're right. It's a pretty busy time of year. We're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, and we're about a week away from our first submission to CERT. So it's there's a lot going on. It's a lot of late nights and early mornings and weekends and that sort of thing. So but in terms of COVID and everything that's been going on in the world, I don't know if it's necessarily impacted me in a big way, other than it's affected hiring. Everybody works remotely anyway. Eric is in Hamilton and Josh is in the States. And I'm here in Peterborough. And so we just do most of our work through Slack, and we meet twice a week on video calls and that sort of thing. So we've been working remotely, and we've been doing it for 2 or 3 years now. So it was sort of just the same old, same old. But it did impact hiring because it's pretty tough to interview people and bring them in and onboard them, and you know, it's hard to find people that are able to up and move and that sort of thing. So hiring was the biggest impact.
But as far as, I mean, you mentioned you guys already work remote for the team that's put together. Did it kind of just go, well, we're prepared for this. This is the team we have. It seems like you guys are truly a 21st century shop, whereas there's a lot that it took a bit for a lot of other studios to kind of get comfortable with that remote development.
Well, the biggest challenge with remote development is the hardware side of things. You have for Microsoft, it's less of an issue, but for Sony, they're very persnickety about where their development kits are. And so if you're not able to get into an office with a secure building and whatnot, that makes it difficult to do testing and development. The nice thing about it, though, is that I'm basically in an office by myself. So even though I'm coming into the office every day, and working on the hardware, well, I'm in the building by myself, more or less. So it's self-isolating by just the fact that I'm the only one here. So yeah, that wasn't an issue.
With the moving on to Max Football 2020 itself, the Unity partnership, in my opinion, was one of the biggest announcements we saw from 2019 to 2020. And it's kind of one of the biggest announcements and partnerships that you guys have had to date. And I know it goes without question how big it is for you and the development of the game, but can you just talk about the true impact that partnership has really had for getting Max Football where it is right now?
Well, back in around December or so, I reached out to Unity to ask just some technical questions. You know, here's a bit of a roadblock, and I'm struggling to find a way around it. How do I, what's the technical solution here? And that simple email turned into a partnership. We partnered officially with Unity, I believe, in January, and they had boots on the ground here in Peterborough in February. And their primary focus for their entire duration, I mean, they're not full-time staff. They were here for a period of time to do a specific task. And that specific task was improve the game's frame rate, just get the performance up to where it needs to be. The first thing that they said when they looked at the code was they were pretty gobsmacked that essentially one person had built this. They couldn't believe that this was a game built by one person. And that's one of the reasons they partnered, because it helps them showcase their tool. For them, it's a matter of Well, if one person starting in his basement and working up to having staff in an office building can build a simulation football game by himself, it can probably do what you want it to do. So for them,
Mhm.
it's a marketing opportunity to show off their tool set. But for me, it was a way to get the experts. These are the people that actually engineered the Unity development tools to come into the studio and show me where I'd gone wrong in terms of the things that I could do to improve the performance of the game. Um, and some of these things were simple that it just would never have occurred to me that this was an issue. Some of it they acknowledged that their documentation isn't very clear, and I was actually following their guidelines pretty closely, but it wasn't clear.
Yeah.
So they spent a lot of time helping me rewrite some of the systems to improve the performance. We migrated up to Unity 2019, which enables a technology called multiple threading. So I can take some of the more common jobs and move them off into separate threads so they run in the background, that sort of thing. And we're running at a pretty consistent 60 frames a second now, which is really nice to see. Because when you're running at 60 frames a second, everything else just works better. The
Yeah.
animations are smoother, the physics works better, all that other stuff. When you get big spikes up and down between 60 and 30 and 60 and 15 and 60 and 30 again, and there's no consistency, the animation systems and the physics systems break down. So it really helped quite a lot.
What have you seen that partnership kind of improve the performance of the team you have in house? Not just with yourself developing, but everybody else, just knowing that you have that partnership, that backing from Unity themselves?
Well, for me, it was the Unity partnership was really focused on the technology and the development side of things. So for the marketing, Eric Aspirin looks after the marketing and the community side of things. So that's it. Perhaps is a better question for him. But in terms of the rest of the team, when it comes to the actual development, they leave it up to me anyway. And so 99% of the communication with Unity from Canuck Play went through me anyway. So.
Okay. With the gameplay itself, gameplay improvements this year, I mean, there's a ton of them. How players track the ball in the air, how defenders play the ball, tip passes, QB animations. How did you decide when moving on from 2019 to 2020? How did you decide what areas of the gameplay you really wanted to focus on? Did a lot of that have to do thanks to Unity that allowed you to focus on them, or did you have an idea from the start, no matter what, this is what we're addressing?
Well, it was a bit of both. We knew that gameplay improvements is something that we want to do every year regardless. So it really it wouldn't have mattered if Unity had been on board or not. The thing with Unity being on board is that our gameplay improvements are enhanced by their work. Now that the game is running at 60 frames a second, the things like IK tracking and the physics work a lot better. So instead of me spending time trying to figure out why are the hands not going up to catch the ball, I can spend time on making sure that defender's in the right place to begin with. And in terms of the other features, we have a huge list of features and things that we want to put into the game. And every year we sit down and we say, well, what do we think that we can accomplish this year given our small staff? And so this year we looked at focusing a lot on new gameplay things, adding the play designer, and adding a few nice to haves to Dynasty, as well as doing a general quality of life improvements to the UI and that sort of thing.
As far as those improvements and gameplay improvements, how much of that, being a small studio, is thanks to frame-by-frame coding, where you are moving every limb, every element, versus getting new motion capture? Because I know you guys have done some motion capture, but if you were to put it at maybe a percentage breakdown of those improvements between coding straight up from scratch versus coding via motion with motion capture help, how much would you attribute to each?
The motion capture really shows off for things like the post-play celebrations and the emotions and stuff like that. The quarterback animations, like the throwing motions, that sort of thing, obviously those are there. But for the most part, you don't see a lot of tackle animations in our game because we use physics. We don't have canned tackle animations. Everything's done through the physics system. So that sort of takes care of itself. The players running, the players backpedaling, that sort of thing. I've spent some time cleaning up, but all of the improvements come from the fact that Unity spent time improving the frame rate and getting it smoothed out. So you don't see these jittery movements quite as much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And once that's sorted, then I can spend my time writing the code to put a player in a position. And I can, right now, I can just tell the player, I need you to go to this spot in the field. And all the underlying systems are in place to just do it. So that's kind of how it breaks down. Most of the motion capture stuff is just basic animations, and the code is what gets the player in the right place at the right time.
So you've talked about the frame rate improvement and just that lack of a jittering moving forward, and it kind of leads into my next question and kind of answered it, I guess, in a way. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because one thing I noticed with 2019 and beyond is that in certain areas of the gameplay and like the running game and things like that, it always felt like the game would slow down mid-play. Yeah. So I'm assuming that improvement with the frame rates alone goes a long way in making sure that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, so one of the things that was causing issues last year was we were trying to do everything on one thread. Mm-hmm. And now that we've got Unity's help to split things into multiple threads, essentially we're using all the CPUs in the console now, as opposed to trying to do everything with one. And that's offloaded a lot of work. So even something as simple as the player's pathfinding around the other players, that's work is no longer done in the core thread. It's done in the background, and it's improved the performance a lot because now that stuff is sort of being done in the background and it's not hogging up cycles that could be used for rendering or animation or those other things. The other things that we've done for that is we've improved one of the things we did do was improve the pathfinding in general. Mm-hmm. So you see, when the CPU would hand the ball off, sometimes the running back would just plow right into his offensive line. Well, they don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more. I'm not going to run up the backside of my center. I'm going to try to go around him. Now it's football and it's a contact sport, and once you get into closed spaces, you're going to have some of that just because it's football. But I think one of the things that game this year is the CPU is much better at moving in the open field and keeping away from defenders as opposed to trying to run through them. And some of that stems from the work that Unity did.
With quarterbacks specifically, you mentioned in the pre-release notes and things like that, and part of the marketing is the quarterback animation and the release time. Mm-hmm. How much was it, or how big of a lift actually is it to make something that to many on the outside sounds like such a small little change? Is just quarterback release, how they move their arms in the ball. But when you're actually in the code, and can you kind of give an idea of what it takes to actually make something that sounds so small such a big improvement?
Well, one of the things that we did last year was we recorded many quarterback throwing motions. And in fact, the quarterback that we used came out of the McMaster Marauders out of Hamilton, and now he's been drafted by the Canadian Football League. So mm-hmm. I think all of the players we use for motion capture have gone on to the pro ranks. But it's been in terms of the quarterback, it's been a combination of using slightly different motion capture animations, making some changes to the animation tree that processes those animations, and tweaking some of the speeds and some of the movements that are there. we don't want to get into arcade football where
Yeah.
the quarterback throws in one frame, and it's tough that you're already seeing a quarterback that's winding up and releasing the ball in less than half a second, and people are saying it's got to be faster. It's got to be faster. Well, that would be arcadey, and how much faster do you want? I mean, there's that fine line of we don't want arcade football. We're not instantaneous laser passes. We want there to be a movement. We want there to be an animation. If we speed it up too much, you're going to have people complaining that there's no animation.
Yeah, and you're never going to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
It's finding that fine line, or that happy median, I guess.
Yeah. So I think that's what we've tried to do with all of our animations. I mean, even some of our juke moves and stuff like that, we've changed without trying to go down the road of it's an arcade game, and human beings cannot physically move like that. To it's a video game, so it can be a little bit skewed out of the realm of realism just to speed things up. So yeah, it's that balance.
With outside of gameplay, with the modes, obviously the big mode within Maximum Football is Dynasty Mode. Mm-hmm. You're dubbing it Dynasty 2.0. Things like with player transfers, playoffs, and just so many new features coming to this mode. Were you surprised, though, at the reaction and the response to it last year and how popular it was amongst the community?
Well, it's what we were hoping for, but I'm a bit of a pessimist, so yeah. It's always good. I was never really sure what we were going to get, and so I was happy with the response. I think one of the reasons that it became so well received is it hasn't been on the current consoles. There's been no Dynasty Mode on the current generation of consoles, and it also is separating us from other titles. One of the things that we're really trying to do here with Maximum Football is not simply be a Me Too. We're not focusing on creating an NFL experience. That's being done by other groups, and there's another one coming next year. So really, we're just trying to carve out our own space, and focusing on the college side with all of the customizations where you can have Canadian football, U.S. college football. You can play U.S. Pro Rules if you wish. All the Dynasty stuff, the play creation stuff, all the uniform and team editing. All of that stuff is being built to allow you to create your own football universe. And I think that's what separates us from the other titles that are out there.
With the Dynasty Mode being the bread and butter, basically, mode of the game, though, has there been any idea or talks of maybe we don't need U.S. Pro Rules in the game, and you just focus and you put all your eggs into that Dynasty basket?
Well, the reason that we have all the other game modes is because the idea is to eventually get to the point where you can have experience that starts you from high school and goes through all the way up to the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
So those modes and all that customization and stuff, that's all just foundation for where we want to be able to take the game in a couple of years with growing that universe. So they're kind of there for a reason, as a foundation to get to where we want to be.
Of everything coming in Dynasty Mode this year, what are you most proud of that you added that wasn't there?
Well, a lot of the things that we did are small, but all those small things add up.
Yeah.
We've completely redone the depth chart this year. It's 100% new depth chart system. So I think people will find it a lot easier to use the depth chart now. And we've taken the college Dynasty teams and brought them out into play now, so people can just play with their customized team, but not have to actually be inside a college Dynasty experience. In terms of the mode itself, adding transfers adds another layer of of authenticity to the title. We've also added conference championships this year. We've got player awards as well, so it helps you sort of, because they're all fictional players and you can't just turn on ESPN and see that guy's face.
Yeah.
Trying to build a bit of an attachment to these fictional players that only exist on your hard drive. So it's little things like that I think add up to the bigger experience.
With transfers, that is a bigger one, because it adds a nice little strategy to, hey, you got to keep your players happy and keep your star players happy. But is there a logic, kind of a warning system of maybe, okay, this guy's unhappy that he hasn't played much in the past 4 weeks, or does the transfer kind of come out of nowhere?
There is stuff under the hood that is sort of describes a disgruntled player.
Okay.
We're probably going to be looking at pushing that into the front end a little later on. But right now, for shipping, it's sort of a surprise. The coach will just get an email and say, hey, coach, I left. But under the hood, that stuff is there. It's just that, we sort of run out of time to push all that stuff onto the front end. So where content updates are a big thing with us, we always try to add new features and improve the game post-ship. So some of the little things like that will make it into the game post-ship.
So obviously it's hard to not know or notice there's a lot of negativity surrounding the main AAA football game on the market right now. But you guys have seemed to capture that negativity with the whole classicfranchise.com. And it's just been, to me and a lot of people, it's been a great grasp of marketing. And
that's not me. That's all Eric. I have nothing to do with that. Eric is a wizard at this stuff. And I'm really happy that a couple of years ago he reached out to me. I did an interview with a local Peterborough podcaster talking about the game, and somehow Eric, who lives in Hamilton, which is, I'm going to say 2.5 hours up the highway from me, heard that podcast, and I mentioned as kind of a throwaway that I've been looking for a business partner that wants to get on board and build this thing. He reached out and said, hey, I think I'm your guy. And he showed me his basement, which is a museum of sports video games. And it's multiple big screen televisions and every console that's ever existed in wall-to-wall games. And it's
so every sports gamer's dream.
Yeah. Every sports gamer's wet dream is his basement. And I thought, yep, this could work. And since then, Eric has run with the marketing. I mean, Doug Flutie, he's the one that did all the legwork to get Doug Flutie on board and that kind of thing. So I just write code, and Eric does all that stuff.
At the end of the day, obviously, you see the marketing, you see the reaction to it. What has been your reaction to seeing how the community has kind of gravitated towards you guys because of this?
Well, it's been it's rewarding. It's rewarding that, when I started this in 2016, 2015, and I started talking about the project, everybody was a naysayer. Like, this is just never going to happen. Game's never going to see the light of day. And then other groups started up with their own ideas for how to do projects and things like that. And they were garnering a lot of attention. And I was just sort of in my basement doing my own thing. And then I released the game, and everybody said, oh, okay, well, the game's out. It wasn't a very good game, but it laid the foundation. It got out there. It established the relationships with Microsoft and Sony. It allowed me to figure out, okay, how do I go through a certification process now? What's involved in this? Get something out. It got some revenue into the studio so that I could do more things like motion capture, that sort of thing. You've got to start with something, and most people just didn't get that. So now we're at a point where 3-4 years later, we're growing a big audience. We've got some big sponsors. We've got Doug Flutie on board. We've sort of found our own space in the world where we can work and grow. And so it's been rewarding for me seeing that happen over the past couple of years. And a lot, not everybody, but a lot of the naysayers have sort of gone away and said, oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's getting that one product out. Because
Yeah.
obviously we've seen recently with a big dream project that just failed, never got out, never saw the light of day. So getting that first product out obviously helps a lot. And it's built you guys that momentum, especially after last year. But that leads into, how do you keep that momentum rolling and keep the community that's there now on your side moving forward?
Well, I think for us, the question is just keep trying to do what we've been doing. And that's listen to the feedback, find out what people are focusing on, find out what people want, um, and then growing the team. I mean, I'm the very first person to admit that this game is reaching the point now where it's beyond the scope of one person to be able to maintain it and build it and add stuff. And so for the past year, minimum a year, probably more, we've been on the hunt for quality AAA level engineers to bring on board and take over parts of the feature set and own that stuff. We've tried a couple of people so far. It didn't work out, but we're still in the hunt for filling roles inside the studio, animators and audio people and coders and everybody, all the positions that we need to grow and add the features and bring that game closer to that AAA level that we're striving to get to. I mean, I always think it's odd on when I see Twitter and stuff like that, and folks are saying, well, it doesn't look like a AAA game because it's one dude.
Yeah.
We know that it doesn't look like a AAA game. You're not telling me something that I don't already know, but the goal is to get there.
Yeah.
And we get there by the support of the community, by generating revenue that's going to allow me to hire professional staff and give them the professional tools that they need and the professional workspace they need to be working in. And then we can have those AAA features and AAA imagery that you're looking for.
And this moves us into fan questions. We had people reach out on Twitter and our YouTube channel and all across social media. And
Sure.
we took a few of them. And that momentum and that community actually leads us into the first question from B-Dog Rise. With the game continuing its growth, has there been any thought of maybe crowdfunding to bring in more for development?
Well, we have done crowdfunding in the past. I mean, we do have a Patreon, and people are more than, if people want to support us through Patreon, the minimum subscription is $2,
Mm-hmm.
and the highest is whatever you want to support. So the crowdfunding system has been there. It just hasn't driven enough. It's given Eric a budget to work with, but it's certainly not done enough for me to hire staff. That comes directly through sales. All of our staff salaries or potential salaries for potential staff are coming through sales.
Kingdom asks, in light, and you kind of touched on it earlier when you said you don't want to be a Me Too game, but he asked, in light of 2K joining the football market in 2021, how do you plan on maintaining that market space you have in an ever-growing competitive field?
I don't think what 2K is doing is going to impact us whatsoever. They are focused on the NFL. They are focused on non-simulation football because by the agreement with EA and the NFL, they have to focus on non-simulation. Now, my speculation is it's something akin, it will end up being something akin to Blitz or NFL Street. Or
it's got to be that way, or the Playgrounds theme that they've been doing
that's
with
pure
NBA.
Speculation on my part. I have no inside information. But what that does is it's not a college experience and it's not a simulation experience. And so I don't think it impacts us whatsoever.
The Real AJ asks, will Maximum Football 20 have elements such as onside kicks, fake punts, and fake field goals?
So we have redone all of the plays and playbooks this year. So we have more special teams plays than we had last year.
Jarvis Austin asks, are there any plans for online play? And if so, when should players expect to see something?
So online, any kind of online, if you're connecting the console to a server somewhere else to do anything, that's probably a couple of years away minimum, and it's going to require a very large amount of funding. The reason being is that in order to do it professionally and securely, because there's people's money involved with this stuff. So you want a professional team building the account management system, all that stuff. As soon as you have any kind of user content sharing, and we know exactly what kind of user content would be shared, we have to follow the rules of DMCA, which is essentially the rules that YouTube follows.
Yep.
To have a system in place where if somebody's uploaded trademark content, we have a way of taking it down, that sort of thing. All these legal things have to be put in place so we don't get sued into oblivion. That's all very expensive. That costs a lot of money. The technology of making a console talk to a server and getting a file, you can write that in an afternoon. It's dirt simple. It's all of the other stuff that goes with it that makes it very, very expensive and very complicated, and you need a big team. Many people don't know this, but before I created Canuck Play, I was the producer for Sports Online at EA. And my job was to own and look after all of the online feature sets for all of the EA sports games. So I kind of know of what I speak when you need a very professional crew with a lot of resources to have systems like the AAA titles have. And we're financially just not there yet.
And that explains, there was another question, and you kind of answered it there as well. Will players be able to share the teams they customize and make online for others to download and use? But obviously that goes back to the DMCA issues and obviously financial issues.
We cannot build a system that purposely allows people to circumvent copyright law and trademark law.
100%.
That is 100% illegal.
No.
So we have to have systems in place to take those things down when we see them, and then manage the accounts. And now you've got customers that are angry that we've taken their stuff down. So we have to have a customer service team to help them. And it's just it just blows up really quickly in terms of expense and staff and support and all this other stuff.
We have, I think, at least 12 people have asked this question. The focus right now, obviously, is on Max Football 2020.
Yep.
And post-launch support.
Yep.
But do you have plans in place, and is there anything you can reveal about the plans for the next-gen systems, modes, and gameplay?
I'm actually not allowed to talk about it.
You own the company.
Yes, but Microsoft and Sony tell me what I can say. And so there's an NDA that's about that thick.
Yeah, the good old,
Yeah. So there is what I will say is that Maximum Football will be on PS5 and Xbox Series X, but the dates and all those things are TBD. And in terms of taking advantage of the new features and hardware and stuff like that, that's probably not going to be until 2021. So it's probably safe to say that. Because there's just not enough lead time for us to create a special, if version. On Xbox do this, if on Series X do this.
Yeah.
There's not enough lead time. So Maximum Football 2020 on those new platforms will look more or less the same as it does on the Xbox X. But 2021, we're going to be doing a lot of stuff for next gen.
A couple more, and we'll send you on your way. What about, and this is another one I got from quite a few people, where's the love, quote, where's the love for the PC gamers after the series had been on there and then taken away? Yeah,
so PC, it really boiled down to sales. And it's just math. Canadian Football 17 was on the PC and it was on the Xbox. and we were something around 25 or 30 to 1 for the Xbox over the PC. And yet at the same time, 100% or close to it of the support requests came from the PC guys. You know, the game doesn't work with this controller, or the game's not running on this new machine, or you know, I end up spending my time debugging somebody's PC. And that actually negatively impacted my development time for Maximum Football 18.
Mm-hmm.
So it boils down to sales. Sales weren't there for the PC, and time spent trying to solve other people's PC issues. I mean, we see it all the time. Things just software breaks,
Yep.
and we don't know why it broke. And you know, I have no idea what's going on with your PC to debug it. So
Yeah.
it boiled down to the sales weren't there to drive it, and I've got the numbers to back that up, and it was eating all of my time for support.
How has, two more questions.
Sure.
How has the support with being on Microsoft and Sony, how have they been as partners for the studio?
Well, I think Microsoft is probably more proactive with its developers than Sony is. I mean,
You're not the first person to even tell me that, too. It seems to be a very common theme.
You know, I'm going to say that I'm on a first name basis with my account manager at Microsoft. I mean, I can shoot. It's a him now. It was her at one point, but I can shoot them an email and just ask a question. And usually, you know, same day, if not within a couple of hours, I get an answer back.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the answer is, well, I don't know, but I'll find somebody who does, that's fine. Sony takes a little bit longer. You've got to send everything through their dashboard, and it's a more there's a wall between Sony and the developers that you don't have with Microsoft, and so I think Microsoft does a better job of hosting events. I mean, they don't necessarily do it now with COVID and everything, but I was at an event in Montreal in January where, you know, I met the actual people. I was able to put faces with emails and talk to people that actually take my game through certification and stuff like that. And it's much easier to build a rapport with those sorts of things with Microsoft than it is with Sony.
Last question. When will fans see full gameplay of Max Football 2020?
So Eric and Josh are starting to put a trailer together now. So we're hoping to have something done around the end of August.
And Dave, with that, we're going to wrap up this episode of the SGO Developer Spotlight. Is there anything you want our listeners and viewers to know? Where can they find all the latest information for Doug Flutie's Maximum Football 20?
Well, we're very active on social media, certainly Twitter and Instagram at Max Football Game. It's also maxfootballgame.com is our website. CnuckGS is my developer account if you want to follow that. There's usually some odd developer tidbits on there if you like the technical stuff. But in terms of what we'd like people to know is that we're not going away. You know, we've been able to quell the naysayers a lot over the past couple of years, and we're just growing and growing, and it's going to take, you know, to get to the level, the AAA level that people are looking for in a college football gaming experience. We've taken a different approach than others have tried, but now we've got a couple of years under our belt, and if we get the support and we get the sales, then we can grow the team and keep building that momentum, and it will just snowball, and before you know it, we'll have a game that rivals anybody else's